Okay, everyone, it's 4 o'clock and we are ready to begin. Thank you everyone for being here today on Zoom and the YouTube live stream for the second year in a row virtual WiSys Quick Pitch State Final. Thank you to all the campuses represented today, the campus champions who support this event, and most of all, the students and recent alumni participating in the event tonight. My name is Ray French and I'm the WiSys Regional Associate serving the Western Wisconsin campuses. Many of our WiSys team are behind the scenes today making this event possible. As an organization, we take pride in events like these that provide an opportunity for students to practice their skills and grow professionally. And it's our vision to build a culture of innovation for a better future. I think you'll get a great glimpse of the future tonight. The goal of the WiSys Quick Pitch competition is to inspire students from all academic disciplines to consider the impact of their research or innovative idea and how their findings could one day benefit the economy and society. Hopefully this helps the students put the why behind what they're doing. So how it works is that each presenter will describe their project in 3 minutes or less. Each pitch will be evaluated on its overall quality and in particular for the presenter to articulate their topic in lay terms, discuss the problem or unmet need that's being addressed, share the importance of their findings, and draw conclusions as to how their project may impact the economy or society. Each of the pitchers tonight are all the winners of their respective campus competitions. With all 11 comprehensive campuses represented, it's truly a statewide competition for all the marbles. There will be a first, second, and third place winner tonight, cash prizes, and statewide glory and bragging rights as the WiSys Quick Pitch State Champion. The winners of all prizes will be announced during the live stream tonight after the pitches conclude and a short judges deliberation. So before we begin, we welcome UW System President Thompson to the event with these recorded remarks. Just getting them pulled up. Sorry, just sit tight, everybody. Okay, I think we've got a technical difficulty, so let me just see if I can get them pulled up. All right, hang on, everybody. Let's see. These were really good. I want to make sure everybody gets them. Let's see. Shoot. Well, while we check on that, let me introduce WiSys President Arjun Sangha, who is also planning to give a short welcome for everybody. Arjun.
Thank you, Ray. Welcome to the 2021 WiSys Quick Pitch State Final. As one of WiSys' signature events, this competition has become one of the most popular events at our annual Spark Symposium, and hopefully this year as well. Congratulations to all the contestants. Distilling a complex topic, let alone any topic, into 3 minutes for a lay audience to understand is a very difficult task. And each year I'm very impressed with the quality of the pitches and the poise of the contestants. I'm sure you'll do a great job this year and make it very difficult for our panel of judges. Not to steal too much of Ray's thunder, but this year we have a special guest as a part of our judging panel, State Treasurer Sarah Godlewski. Thank you, Treasurer Godlewski. We really appreciate your taking the time to participate in this important event showcasing Wisconsin's student talent and research. So on with the event. Hopefully we've got the recording by now. Good luck to all the contestants, and we hope to see a great event. Ray?
All right, thank you, Arjun. All right, everybody, let's try this. Share my screen. Here we go.
Ray, I don't think we're getting audio.
All right, well, I'm sorry. All right, we'll have to make sure those get published in another way. So I apologize for that. Well, the show must go on. So we will move on and welcome all of our judges to the competition. Let me introduce the three of them we have with us today. So when I call your name, please turn on your camera for a quick wave. First, we are joined by Sarah Godlewski, Wisconsin State Treasurer. Now we are joined by Joe Kramer, who's the Director of the Wisconsin Tech Council Investor Networks. Thank you. And Tim Nelson, Regional Director for Mayo Clinic Regional Director of Innovation for Mayo Clinic in Northwest Wisconsin. Thanks, Tim. All right, so thank you to all of our judges for being here today and for your support of the students presenting. After that brief interruption earlier, we'll get to the main event. Thanks again for everyone for being here. So the way this will work, each presenter will be introduced and cued to start their pitch. After each pitch, we will bring in the judges and they will have the opportunity to ask a question or two. And then after each pitch, the judges will take a moment to score and we will move on to the next. After the last pitch, the judges will briefly confer to determine our winner. And I'll also share with you at that time more about the WiSys Spark Symposium virtual series taking place throughout the summer before getting to the award winners. Presenters and judges, please make sure your audio and video are off. Attendees, thank you for joining us today and best of luck to the presenters. With that, we can throw out our first pitch. So first, we have Carl Fossum from Chemistry and Physics at UW-Eau Claire, winner of the Campus Science and Technology category, presenting on understanding the severity of COVID-19, a point of view through the lens of a computational chemist. Thank you. You may begin.
3.5 million deaths globally. COVID has changed our lives forever and the end still isn't in sight. Hi there, I'm Carl Fossum. I'm a senior at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, and I'm majoring in chemistry and physics. Today, I'd like to have a short conversation about COVID-19. So far, multiple companies have developed vaccines within the last year, and we've used these to help combat the spread of COVID-19. That's fantastic, that's great. I'm really happy that we're at that point. However, the rapid spread of COVID-19 throughout the globe has caused new variants to show up all over the place. We see this here in the US, over in Asia, Europe, Africa, South America, and in Australia. So because of this, it's not guaranteed that current vaccines that we have will always be effective at combating COVID-19. Likewise, as we've seen everywhere, vaccine rollouts have been lackluster and billions of people are still unprotected from COVID-19. Therefore, it's important that we as scientists, as human beings, research other long-term therapeutics for treating severe cases of COVID-19. But first, let's talk about some context here. In nature, our bodies naturally fight against viral infection. We've all gotten the flu before, we've all been sick for a couple of days, but we've recovered. One way to quantify our ability to do this is through the study of something called internal oxidative stress. You can think of oxidative stress as how well your body deals with volatile or toxic compounds. When we're young, our bodies have very low oxidative stress. We get sick, we go home for a day for school, we're back and we're good to go. But as we age, our oxidative stress levels increase for various reasons. You have a night shift job, you're in school, whatever the case, you're more stressed out and you're more susceptible to being sick. The goal of our project is to study oxidative stress and say, hey, how does that relate to infection of COVID-19 and its severity? To do this, we've used some high-powered supercomputers to simulate the virus infecting the host cell. We did this using a robust and standard method set by the scientific community known as a molecular dynamics simulation. Initial results from these simulations indicate that a reduction in oxidative stress significantly reduces the ability for COVID-19 to bind to its receptor in your body and to make you sick. In the long run, this means that, okay, if you have lower oxidative stress, you still might get sick, but it's less likely for it to kill you, for COVID-19 to kill you. And these results aren't our own. Recently, researchers from an Institute of Chemistry in Slovenia verified our theoretical findings in a laboratory study published just a couple of weeks ago in FASAB, a major biochemistry journal. We believe that bridging the gap between the people that are vaccinated and those who are not vaccinated is critical in eradicating COVID-19. So you might be asking yourself, okay, cool, but how can I help myself reduce oxidative stress? Well, natural antioxidants such as vitamin D, vitamin C, and yogurt are great for reducing oxidative stress. Likewise, getting daily exercise and being active is another good way you can reduce your oxidative stress. However, there's more than just that. Our group's published research in this topic has been cited in clinical trials for a new drug known as butylamine that is currently pending FDA emergency approval for treating severe cases of COVID-19. We believe that this drug and others are excellent candidates for a global vaccine rollout alongside existing programs. Together, we can stop the virus, we can heal the economy, and we can prevent thousands of more unnecessary deaths from COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Okay, judges, please turn on your video. Do we have any questions for Carl?
I just had a quick question. So Carl, this kind of gets into why children are less impacted by COVID, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
It's a
Cool.
Yeah, it's a broad, the idea of looking at oxidative stress isn't necessarily new, and not just our lab, but hundreds of labs around the world over the last year have been looking into this way for studying disease, whether it be COVID-19 or any other disease. And so you're right on that this is a one way, a lens, a point of view perhaps on why children are less susceptible to severe cases of COVID.
Okay.
So Carl, this was really informative. And I guess as you are going down this therapeutic line of thinking and addressing COVID, how do you see that holistically working with vaccines, for example, knowing that they're kind of two courses of action in how we tackle COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. And please don't get me wrong. This is not something to replace vaccination. Vaccination will always be the number one thing you can do to prevent any sort of disease from spreading through a community. Our idea here is, there are groups of people who are not going to have access to the vaccine. We've already seen this in the US and other places around the world. So if we can have, whether it be a medication or some sort of activities you can do to reduce your oxidative stress that anybody can do, that will help kind of bring in the equity of the vaccine, of treatments for COVID-19, and help herd immunity kind of spread at a more equal rate rather than just the people who have access to a vaccine.
Thank you.
Of course.
Very good. Thank you, Carl. Thanks, judges. You can turn off your video. We'll move on to our next. Next up, we have Maddie Culhane and Caleb Kulich from Marketing and Environmental Justice and Organizational Communication at UW-Eau Claire, winners of the Campus Social Science and Humanities category. They are presenting on investigating trends and patterns in Chinese and American climate change views over time using an index of acceptance, knowledge, concern, and obligation. Thank you. You may begin.
As the two largest greenhouse gas polluters and the two largest economies, China and the US are central to the issue of climate change. And thus, a better understanding of public views on climate change in these two countries is of great interest. Is climate change happening and are human actions the primary cause? How concerned are you about climate change and what should be done to address it? The answers to these questions vary considerably in the US, but what is known about the climate change views among Chinese citizens? We surveyed over 18,000 Chinese and American citizens in 2015, 2017, and 2020 to provide analysis and comparisons of climate change views. Across these 3 years of surveys, nearly 80% of Chinese respondents said that human actions were the primary cause of climate change, compared to just under 60% of Americans. And nearly 90% of Chinese respondents said that individuals have an obligation to act to prevent climate change, compared to just over 70% of Americans. To further illustrate the differing climate change views in China and the US, we use responses to a series of questions to construct a climate change index, yielding an easily comparable metric for climate change views, with a higher score conveying more alignment with the scientific realities of climate change.
The average climate change index score in China was significantly greater than in the US for all 3 years, while there was significantly more variation among American respondents compared to the Chinese. We also see very little change in Chinese climate change views over the 3 years, while there was a large change in climate change views among Americans between 2015 and 2017, but with little change from 2017 to 2020. Underlying the variation in American views on climate change is a significant political division, with liberals scoring the highest and conservatives scoring the lowest in all 3 years. Research by the Yale Center for Climate Change Communication suggests that people around the world, and especially in the US, do not frequently talk about climate change. They also point out that talking more about climate change will be an essential step in taking meaningful and successful action. To this end, our project objectives are to continue working with our Chinese and American partners to collect data and disseminate information to both stimulate and facilitate discussion related to climate change views in these 2 important countries. Although our planned 2020 trip to China was canceled due to the pandemic, we are planning to return to China in 2022 to conduct more in-person research and collaborate with our Chinese faculty and student partners.
Wonderful. Thank you both. All right, judges. Do we have any questions for Maddie and Caleb?
Yeah, I was just curious, Maddie and Caleb, when you were looking at, did you ever get into how we talk about climate change as well, knowing that how we share information also can impact people's views on what they believe?
Maddie, would you like to, or shall I?
Go ahead.
Sure. So a segment of our research team does look at that specifically, actually. Maddie and I aren't involved in that process super directly, but they basically have an open-ended response question. What do you think of when you think of climate change? And they end up taking that data, coding it various different ways, and they're pulling all sorts of different information about people's beliefs, their motivations, their emotional responses to climate change, whether a response is emotional or non-emotional. They found a lot of interesting data with that, looking at how that data breaks down along political lines. So I can't give you a whole lot of specifics about that segment of our research, but it is something that we've been working on.
Great. And just a quick follow-up is, did you look at where they get their information, like through, meaning digital or television, or did you guys look at kind of how they got their information at all?
I'm not sure if we have a question regarding how, but in our survey, we do have one about media and whether or not they trust media in general. We didn't have a specify like newspaper versus digital, but we have the media broad segment.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thanks.
All right, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great discussion. Next, we'll turn to our next pitcher, and that is Kelly House from Psychology and First Nation Studies at UW Green Bay, presenting on origins of imposter syndrome in Indigenous communities. Thank you. You may begin.
Hi everyone, my name is Kelly and I'm a recent graduate from UWGB. I graduated last spring, and so last fall semester I had my first instance of imposter syndrome. When I was applying for graduate programs, I felt as if the person that I was portraying was not me, and if I was giving off a persona that was misleading. Even though I've accomplished many things in my undergraduate career, I had a constant internal monologue of statements such as, "You're not as good as your peers, someone's going to find out how dumb you are. What gives you a right to be part of these programs, to be part of this quick pitch?" And so what I was experiencing, and what at least 10% of the population will experience at one point in their life, is beyond a healthy nervousness. Although it's not recognized by the DSM-5, imposter syndrome is a genuine fear of being exposed as a fraud and a form of intellectual self-doubt. Imposter syndrome has lasting effects on someone's life, including the reluctancy to take on new opportunities, which could sabotage your career, and higher dropout rates, and potentially mental illness. And so most research has reached the consensus that women, racial and ethnic and religious minorities experience it at higher rates. So the question becomes, why these populations? So most research and tips given in overcoming imposter syndrome rely on the individual, but recent research within the last 2 years is shifting the focus off of the individual level and onto the interpersonal and institutional level. And my research focuses on the intersecting causes of imposter syndrome, and specifically looking at Native American populations. Imposter syndrome is not only due to individual causes such as internalized depression or identity confusion, but also due to interpersonal causes such as stereotypes and microaggressions from faculty and staff and coworkers, and institutional causes such as ongoing racism, sexism, classism, xenophobia, transphobia, homophobia. And so these are all historical and embedded in our society. And so many are essentially told that they do not belong in these white, male-dominated and Eurocentric workplaces and school environments. So current research lacks this intersectional model when looking at the symptoms of imposter syndrome. And without this understanding, the treatment of this syndrome is lacking, it is incomplete, and it relies and almost blames the individual. And we need to direct our focus from fixing Native Americans, from fixing women, to instead fixing the places that they occupy. This research will require things such as institutional transformation to address these causes, which makes it that much more difficult and complex when given treatment, but it also makes it that much more urgent, because without interventions at each of these 3 levels, individuals who are capable will not feel capable and will not reach their full potential. And nobody wants that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, judges, do we have any questions?
Kelly, what are some of the things that at an institutional level have been most effective at addressing this issue?
So at the institutional level, again, this is very lax research. So these are things I've actually personally come up with and done kind of outside research on. But having intervention programs and mentioning this at social gatherings, or mentioning this at a more sociable place, or like having peer mentoring programs, and just offering training and assistance, even starting at the high school level, and just letting them be aware that this is a real thing, it really exists, and that you're not crazy. You're not crazy.
Very good. Anything else? Okay. Well, thank you, Kelly. All right. Next up is Colin Shull from Biochemistry and Biomedical Sciences at UW-La Crosse, presenting on a new approach to asymmetric curcuminoids, solvent-free synthesis, and computational modeling. Thank you. You may begin.
According to the ExpressWire, the curcumin worldwide market was worth $130 million in 2019 and is projected to grow. My name is Colin Shull. I'm a recent graduate from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, and my project's on the synthesis and computational analysis of asymmetric curcuminoids. My project has the potential to provide a series of wonder drugs with compounds with a large range of biological properties. We're talking about compounds that can fight cancer, prevent bacterial growth, and even inhibit viruses. The roots of my work go back to the use of turmeric, which is a common Indian spice that many of you may have consumed in curries or foods such like that. And this spice has been associated with medicinal properties for centuries. And more recently, research has discovered that curcumin, a molecule found within turmeric, is primarily responsible for these medicinal properties. Curcumin itself is a symmetric compound, and it has a central linker piece that's most commonly associated with bioactivity, and it has two sidearms that are responsible for solubility. Unfortunately, with natural curcumin, converting it to a pharmaceutical drug has three common downfalls. First is low purity, the second is high cost, and the third is limited water solubility. In my project, I developed improved curcuminoids, and these are structurally similar to curcumin, but we induced asymmetry at the central piece, as well as changing the sidearms for different properties. My work consists of two equally important parts. First is the design of structures using computers, and the second is in-lab production. And this innovative hybrid approach gives me additional information about my molecules and reactions before I even get into the lab with the use of computational chemistry. And then the in-lab part is unique because I employ a microwave energy source. So how does my project and setup correlate to the above mentioned problems with natural curcumin? Well, regarding purity, I can produce products with over 99% purity. I use minimal chemicals and steps, so the process is much more efficient. Lastly, using synthesis, we can adjust solubility by altering the sidearms using different starting materials. With these modifications, I'm able to synthesize new, powerful molecules, which conventionally took days down to minutes, while maintaining or even enhancing bioactivity in a cost-effective and environmentally friendly manner. We have collaborators in both microbiology and biochemistry, and their results demonstrate that desired biological activities on both viruses and bacteria. And we aim to continue collaborating to expand the applications of curcuminoids, especially within the UW system. With the improvement we can make on bioactivity, accessibility, and pharmaceutical potential, we can make curcuminoids a staple drug for health. Thank you.
Thank you, Cullen. Judges.
Colin, I kind of had a quick question, if I could. The curcuminoids is like their major benefit from they're anti-inflammatory, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And is that the sole sort of therapeutic around them, or are there ancillary benefits?
There are other benefits. Being more from the chemistry side, I don't always look at the biochemistry side, but I saw an article today where if you make certain substitution on curcumin, it can prevent like aggregation on peptides to prevent Alzheimer's. So it's not just like one specific part of it. It's just that it's very versatile in many different systems.
Okay, thank you.
Colin, you said you can get the manufacturing down to minutes. Tell me more. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, so using conventional heat, it usually takes it can take upwards to 72 hours just to heat it, just to get the reaction going. Whereas microwave can be, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, depends on what you want to do exactly and what the reaction is and what your reaction setup is. So it's kind of like microwave chemistry is a newer topic, and it can reduce reaction times if it works.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Judges? Oh. All right, thanks, Colin. Okay, next up, we have Brianna Roberts from Kinesiology at UW Oshkosh and winner of the Campus Science and Technology category. She's presenting on the extent helmet types have on helmet motion in American football collisions. Thank you. You may begin.
Being from the state of Wisconsin, many of you may know someone who played American football at some point in their life. In a recent study published in the Journal of Pediatrics, it was found that at least 5% of youth football players ranging in age from 5 to 14 have received a concussion. As they got older, that percentage only increases as they play in higher levels. Hi, my name is Brianna Roberts, and I recently graduated from UW Oshkosh with a bachelor's degree in kinesiology. You may not know, but by receiving just one hit to the head, a player could develop CTE as a result. CTE, or chronic traumatic encephalopathy, is a neurodegenerative brain disease that, with concussions and increased exposure to less severe head collisions, is more likely to develop. Due to the amount of head collisions we see in sports like American football, Dr. Wallace, Jenna Hawk, and I wanted to investigate that idea. Previous research has been done that focuses on how to reduce concussions and the prevalence of them. However, little research has been done on the extent helmet types have on concussions. Our study will add new knowledge by comparing the peak loading rates, peak accelerations, peak velocities, and much, much more of two of the most widely used helmet types in the sport of football, WiSys 01 and Rydell SpeedFlex. To compare these helmets, we conducted linear drop tests for each helmet at various heights. We used a 3D kinematic motion analysis system and placed reflective markers at key points throughout the helmet. To simulate the weight of a human head, we strapped a 10-pound dumbbell inside the helmet. Special cameras then tracked how the markers on the helmets moved throughout our linear drop tests. From the information that was recorded on these cameras, we were able to gather how quickly the helmets accelerated in the air, what the peak loading force was upon impact, and the peak velocity the helmets had reached. We also compared the data we found for one helmet type to the helmet's very own data collection system to test the accuracy of the safety and of the system itself. By comparing two of the most widely used helmet types in the sport of football through the use of linear drop tests and motion analysis software, we were truly able to distinguish what type of helmet can reduce helmet motion the most. The results of this study showed that WiSys 01 helmet reduced helmet acceleration the most, and therefore may reduce the incidence of collisions related to head injuries based on measured impact biomechanics. We will be sharing our findings with UW Oshkosh's football team and staff, as well as the athletic trainers, to ensure that players are the most protected they can be by changing or keeping the helmet type each player may use. Thus, this could severely impact the participation levels and registration fees due to the substantial difference in cost of each helmet. With the data found from this study, we hope to set a path for further research to eventually establish and develop a helmet that can significantly reduce the possibility of concussions in the sport of football and ultimately reduce the risk of CTE. Thank you for listening, and feel free to ask any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the judges?
Brandon, is there a way for this to be standardized so that consumers and parents would know what the shelf life is of these helmets that get recycled year after year?
Not that I'm aware. I will definitely talk to my professor about it. I really think there should be, because that way it's the consumers going into it know what helmet is the most beneficial for them, which one's sturdy enough, which one will protect the head the most, because the WiSys one obviously hasn't had a longer shelf life just because they recently went bankrupt, so they are no longer a business, even though they were the most efficient in reducing helmet motion, unfortunately. But as far as I'm aware, no, there is not.
Interesting. Which helmet will keep Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay? That's the question too.
I really wish I knew.
All right. Well, thank you, Brianna.
Thank you.
All right. We'll keep things moving here. Next, we have Julia Thompson from Economics and Information Systems at UW Oshkosh and winner of the Campus Social Science and Humanities category. She's presenting on flexible job structure and gender gap in turnover, the case for information technology occupations. Here we are.
Hi, my name is Julia Thompson, and I'm a double major in information systems and economics. Still in the year 2021, studies across industries continue to report two critical trends. First, women continue to be paid less than equally educated and qualified men. Second, women are more often forced out of their careers due to work-family balance challenges. As a hardworking woman who aspires to pursue a career in the male-dominated field of information technology, or IT, these disparities in labor market outcomes are incredibly discouraging. So my research aims to eliminate these gender gaps in the labor market by studying the impact of job structure on the retention of women, specifically in the IT field. Through preliminary research, I found that these gaps are more prominent in highly structured jobs, such as finance or accounting, that enforce rigid work schedules and long-term projects. IT occupations, on the other hand, commonly involve short-term tasks, flexible hours, and part-time work schedules. These may greatly assist women with work-family balance challenges and correlate with fewer women leaving their jobs. So through my research, I aspire to distinguish IT from the general mass of career fields. In particular, I will examine whether women are more likely than men to leave IT jobs, especially in comparison to rigidly structured jobs. To measure the gender gap in job turnover, I will collect monthly data of thousands of workers from the Consumer Population Survey spanning over the past decade. I will then conduct a series of mathematical tests to calculate the rates of job turnover between men and women, both within IT and compared across fields, based on variables including their education, work experience, age, marital status, and children. I predict that the more flexible occupational structure in IT leads to a reduced gender gap in job separations. As a result, I hope to identify IT as a sector in which women have the flexibility to remain and succeed in their careers rather than feeling pressured to leave. Subsequently, the gender gap in earnings has significant potential to converge in IT occupations. Through identifying these positive trends, I aspire to motivate women to pursue rewarding IT careers. I also aspire to encourage employers across industries to offer more flexibly structured positions. Ultimately, through my research, I hope that in the near future, the trends I began by discussing will soon read as follows. First, women and men in IT receive equal earnings. Second, women are just as likely to be retained in IT careers. And as a result, motivated women like myself will be able to achieve success in their careers for generations to come. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Julia.
Thanks.
Julia, just kind of curious, what is the next closest industry to IT that could be more adaptable?
Yeah, so like right now, that is something that I'm still looking into through my research. I'm currently in the initial planning stages of my research project, and most of the literature that we reviewed has focused on heavily structured jobs such as, finance and accounting and things like that are, focused around long-term projects and very rigid tasks. But just IT, just due to the ever-changing nature of technology in today's day and age, so much changes on a daily basis that these jobs tend to allow tasks to be broken up into more flexible opportunities that are much more conducive to the success and retention of women in the workforce.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
And Julia, I know this is, I think, a very important topic. And of course, as a woman in finance, I think it's interesting to know, thinking about the flexibility. And is your research also maybe looking into how COVID has impacted too the workplace, knowing that a lot more people are remote and we're seeing more flexible workplaces just as a result of COVID?
Yeah, for sure. No, that is something I'm really looking forward to looking into as I begin my research this fall semester, because while I plan to examine trends over the past decade or so, studies have shown that women have been disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Statistically, just so many more women have chosen to, stay at home to help children with school. And so just through the flexibility that kind of COVID has provided with different work from home opportunities, I'm also anticipating that those IT jobs offer or continually offer greater opportunities for women to stay in their jobs and succeed just due to the nature of IT.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Great, thank you, Julia. Thank you, judges. So we're going to give our judges a minute to catch up, work on some scores, and we're going to try again on the welcome video from President Thompson. Hopefully, fingers crossed, no blue screens of death this time, and let's give it a shot.
Welcome. Welcome to the 6th annual WiSys Quick Pitch Competition. Congratulations to all of today's talented participants for making it to the state final. It's going to be exciting. Your research matters, and being able to explain it so others can understand it, even if the subject is unfamiliar, is what this is all about. It's a big deal. The ability to communicate clearly and concisely is a skill that doesn't just win points at competition. It's also an incredibly valuable skill that's going to benefit you throughout your whole life. In the spirit of the event, I will make this quick. So on behalf of the University of Wisconsin system, I wish you all the best of luck here today, and whatever life takes you in the future.
Great. Thank you again, President Thompson, for that warm welcome to everybody. And congratulations to all the participants today. Okay. So with that, we will keep things rolling. And moving on, we have Julia Jones from physics at UW Parkside, presenting on the development of YBCO-based sandwich type SIS tunneling Josephson junction device. You may begin.
Nanofabrication of an SIS tunneling Josephson junction device seems like something straight from an episode of Star Trek. It might not make a lot of sense yet, but don't worry. By the end of this pitch, you will have an idea about Josephson junction devices, their applications, and the successful results of our new design and fabrication methods. So to start, an SIS Josephson junction is a nanoelectronic device containing an extremely thin layer of an electrical insulator sandwiched between two superconductor layers. So S stands for superconductor and the I stands for insulator. What's groundbreaking about this device is electric current can flow even in the absence of an electric voltage or current source. These devices are essential components in many areas of modern technology, including squid biomagnetometer sensors used in the medical field. Brain imaging and magnetocardiography are performed with such sensors, and Josephson junctions allow us to access an entire frontier of biomedical knowledge. We are currently working to fabricate a high-temperature YBCO-based Josephson junction device, which offers many advantages over the conventional low-TC superconductor-based devices already on the market. For example, in hospitals, the current systems I mentioned have to use liquid helium as the coolant. Our high-temperature devices can be cooled with liquid nitrogen, and it's estimated that this will cut purchasing and operating costs in half. This is because nitrogen is readily available and easy to retrieve, as it makes up 78% of our air, whereas helium makes up less than 1%. Additionally, cryogenic system simplicity ensures our systems will be cheaper, safer, and more convenient to use. If systems can be utilized for about half the price, imagine the opportunity for widespread distribution within hospitals, especially those with limited resources. Fabricating a high-quality junction is challenging because the insulator must be only a nanometer thin, which is 1/1000th of a meter, while maintaining high electrical resistivity. This property, along with the critical current of the device, makes up the ICRN product, which directly relates to the efficiency of the junction. Our research group has been collaborating with laboratories on the national and university level, including UW-Madison and the National Institute of Standards and Technology, to combat these challenges. We use various methods, which for the sake of time, I will describe simply as solid-state reactions and pulse laser deposition to grow a bilayer of YBCO superconductor and PBCGO insulator. We have thoroughly tested this bilayer, and the results confirm our growth process is highly successful and yields excellent properties such as the high ICRN product I mentioned earlier. We are working on completing the nanofabrication process by adding the third and final layer of the SIS junction, which will undergo even more testing to ensure it is high quality and reproducible. The scientific community is always working to learn more about the world we live in and how we can benefit our lives from that knowledge. Our research on the development of high-temperature Josephson junction devices is an example of such work. System simplicity, higher efficiency, and low-cost production are all benefits of this cutting-edge technology we are in the final stages of fabricating. Thank you everyone for attending, my research advisor, Home Condell, and also WiSys and the UW system for the funding to make this research possible.
Thank you, Julia. Questions from the judges?
Julia, what does it take to manufacture this? Is this specialized manufacturing equipment to drive the cost of production and scalability, or is this can be routinely manufactured like other devices?
So that is one of our main goals of making these YBCO-based high-temperature devices, is that they will be more simple to use, therefore more cost-efficient. We do have to use a lot of very technological machines, such as the pulse laser deposition, which requires a very high-powered vacuum and a high-frequency laser. So as of right now, they are a little bit not so cost effective, and that is what we are trying to combat.
Julia, do you have sort of like a real world example of how this could be put into use on either a consumer or business side? I mean, like what would change if this material were truly available and maybe that's a big question.
So right now the applications are other applications, but besides the biomagnetometer sensors I mentioned, include high frequency detectors used in airport security, quantum computing, geophysical measurements. We have communications with GE Healthcare and also Bruker for next generation MRI machines. And we also have patents that are in the works currently.
Okay.
Besides the high frequency detectors for the airports, they are also have applications in NASA and the Department of Defense.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, judges. Okay, moving on. We next have Jean Cruz from Biochemistry at UW-Platteville, presenting on virus reduction from surfaces using first contact polymers. Begin.
All of you watching these pitches today are probably sitting at home behind a screen or at work or school because of the global COVID-19 pandemic. What if I told you that a chemical polymer called first contact could contribute to ending the pandemic? Hello, my name is Jean Cruz, and I've been researching the effectiveness of first contact at removing viruses from surfaces. I decided to do this because first contact, invented at UW-Platteville, is an adhesive polymer already known for being able to remove fingerprints, bacteria, and even DNA from surfaces. Because of this, it seemed like a logical hypothesis that viruses may also be removed with first contact. We are performing this research in coordination with the Planetary Protection Division at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, who is interested in first contact's ability to clean equipment by removing contaminants from returning spacecraft. COVID-19 is just one of the many things that falls squarely within this category of undesirable contaminants. First contact is a liquid adhesive that we apply directly to the surface being cleaned. When the solution dries, it is simply peeled away from the surface. Doing this removes contaminants from the surface through adhesive forces. One benefit of this is that we have the ability to later retrieve samples from the first contact that has been peeled off. The result is both a cleaner surface than the current cloth-based systems and an opportunity to further study the isolated contaminants from the peeled first contact under safe laboratory conditions. My goal is to determine the effectiveness of first contact for removing viruses from surfaces using a laboratory virus as a substitute for COVID-19. These viruses have a long history as model specimen for basic science research. Based on the results of previous experiments we have conducted with bacteria as well as DNA, we feel confident that first contact will be effective for removing viruses. Our current efforts are focused on creating protocols based on the ones used with bacteria to accommodate the differences between them and viruses. These procedures are being developed to remove the viruses from glass surfaces, although we have plans to broaden the range of our research to other typical industrial and household surfaces, such as stainless steel and porcelain. It's not hard to imagine a time when first contact sits next to Lysol on the shelves of grocery stores. Overall, we are working diligently on demonstrating first contact's ability to remove virus from surfaces because, as we've seen over the last year, we will not always know when a devastating illness will appear, but the better equipped we are, the better off we will be, and first contact could soon be our first line of defense. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Any questions from the judges?
Gene, what do you do with this material once it's peeled back from the surfaces? How do you decontaminate it or dispose of it at that point?
Right. So we actually, you just dispose of it as in a waste bin as anything else. Obviously, you want to be careful in case there are contaminants with it. Yeah.
Gene, just curious, so using a rag is easy, right? How much more difficult, or is it the same to use this type of adhesive?
Right. So in the lab, we apply it directly using a simple pipette onto surfaces. Although it has been theorized, and it's a possibility that application through aerosol, similar to Lysol, is possible. And well, we know that it's possible. We just don't use it yet. So that's one application to make it simpler for people to do.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Great, very good. Thanks, Gene.
Thank you.
Thanks, judges. Okay. Next, we have Blair Wormuth from Animal Science at UW River Falls presenting on an animal welfare-focused exploration of the Philadelphia cream cheese dairy supply chain. Thank you. You may begin.
The vast majority of people care about animals in one way or another. I think most of us can see this in our own lives with the pets that we may have at home or the wildlife that we all appreciate, though this can also certainly be said about our production animals. Now, more than ever, people are becoming more and more concerned about where their food comes from. They're faced with that question, is this quote unquote morally good? Not only is the general public becoming more invested in the welfare of these animals and fully expect them to live a good life, but producers are as well. Like most people, they too care deeply about their animals' well-being. But prior research has also shown us that the average customer is actually willing to pay more for products that are sourced from humanely treated animals. And according to the World Organization for Animal Health, animals with positive health and welfare are significantly more productive. So not only do happy animals equal happy customers, but happy producers as well. This is definitely something which food brands such as Philadelphia cream cheese have taken note of, as they often utilize certification programs where benchmarks are set for farms and their practices. While programs such as this do help give us a good idea about how things are generally run on a dairy farm, there are still a lot of variables that we don't quite know, especially in our area of interest, that being the rearing of dairy calves. Current research is available to show us some of the best known practices for calf care and management. Though the issue here is that many producers may not have immediate access to this research, or they may not know how to practically utilize it within their own facilities. Outside guidance would be beneficial in providing these operations with the potential steps that they could take. But in order for this brand to know exactly where changes need to be made, it's necessary to know where their operations stand currently. Our goal here is to identify what practices are actually being performed on the farm and to make recommendations based on thorough scientific literature reviews. Our research is going to be broken into two main portions, those being the aforementioned literature review and the surveying of current farm practices. By doing this, we hope to gain a solid understanding of current calf care, final destinations, and final welfare outcomes and their effects on overall calf welfare. Based on these sets of information, a summary of areas of both strength and weakness regarding calf welfare can be identified and presented with practical recommendations for on-farm changes. Ultimately, our goal is to form a set of research-supported guidelines for the dairies used in the production of Philadelphia cream cheese products. Our hope is that our study will help form standards which will be beneficial to consumers by ensuring that their products are coming from dairies using the best care practices available, beneficial to food producers for the profits from marketing the high standards which they place upon their sources, and of course to ensure that these calves are given the highest possible standard of care and management in exchange for the service that they're providing us. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you, Blair. All right, judges. Any questions?
Yeah, Blair, I just have a question about, as you're thinking through your analysis, and maybe just talk a little bit more about how cost can play into this. As you mentioned, happy customers, happy cows, better production, and kind of what other cost type factors might you be looking at?
Yeah, so one of the big things that we're focusing on is not only making recommendations, but making practical recommendations. I think a lot of people are in the mindset, oh, if you want to increase welfare, you got to do a brand new facility, you got to change everything up, which is simply not the case. You could start little by little, make little steps, little changes here and there, and slowly build up to get to a standard goal that we're trying to reach. So what we're basically trying to do is make recommendations based on what we're currently working with in order to get to a higher goal. And in the end, that'll help improve things like profits through customers and advertising and increase profits all around.
Great, thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Blair. All right, thank you, judges. All right, moving forward, we have Isabel Dunn from Water Resources at UW-Stevens Point, presenting on benthic macroinvertebrate community responses to wastewater treatment plant discharges in central Wisconsin. You may begin.
So water is quite possibly our most precious resource, and it's critical that we understand how to protect it. Every toilet that you flush today or load of laundry you run produces wastewater that ends up in wastewater treatment plants and is then discharged into receiving water bodies, potentially impacting their water quality through contributing excess nutrients and solids, as well as pathogens and contaminants. And with the average person generating 50 gallons of wastewater per day, understanding the impacts of the water leaving these plants is important to better manage the quality of their receiving waters. One way to do this is to look at aquatic macroinvertebrates. Aquatic macroinvertebrates are aquatic insects and other invertebrates that live on the bottom of lakes and rivers. Certain invertebrates can tolerate low water quality while others cannot. So which ones you find can provide valuable insights on the ecological condition of waterways. And often they tell us a more comprehensive story about the health of water than chemical analysis alone. Using that idea, I chose to investigate changes in macroinvertebrate community metrics, which are measures of health based on attributes of the bugs present in the water, in order to assess the water quality associated with wastewater treatment plants. I expected to see a decrease in water quality downstream of the plants reflected by these metrics. My project used a control impact study design where I collected macroinvertebrate samples upstream and downstream of the discharge points of 4 similar sized plants around central Wisconsin. I also collected water chemistry and habitat data at each site to ensure there were no major confounding factors in the environment that would influence these metrics. And using those data, I ran statistical analyses on a variety of metrics whose responses generally fit my expectations by reflecting a decrease in water quality downstream of the plants. Although overall, I did not see a significant change upstream and downstream. While future study may include expanding sample size to produce more statistically significant findings, I was able to suggest that the wastewater treatment plants I sampled appear to be managing their effluent flow. This isn't too surprising though, as Wisconsin and the United States have rather strict policies and regulations on water quality compared to the rest of the world. Globally, 80% of wastewater flows back into an ecosystem untreated, which contributes to contamination in drinking water that kills millions of people each year. So clearly, access to wastewater services is a global concern. This approach can be important internationally because it's a cheaper way of determining if discharge from a certain source is affecting the environment. As someone who spends a lot of time collecting and identifying inverts, I can tell you that it is relatively cost effective. You can get away with a net, some tweezers, a bottle of ethanol compared to the thousands of dollars of analytical equipment that it would take to do advanced water chemistry. So all in all, aquatic macroinvertebrates are an important tool for identifying water quality issues and directing funding and efforts in water quality management, both for aquatic ecosystems as well as public health. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Isabel. Questions from the judges?
Isabel, how dependent on the climate will this be a variable? I can imagine from a warmer climate versus a cooler climate, these techniques might vary.
Yeah, like what I was using was an index that was developed for invertebrates that you find in Wisconsin. So different regions across the country might have different invertebrates that you see, but there's been research done on how tolerant all the different groups are. So depending on where you are, you would use a different metric to measure how healthy the stream is. But those have already been developed for the invertebrates we have in Wisconsin. So those were the ones that I was using.
Good. Thank you, Isabel. Thank you, judges. Okay, next we have Miter Yang from Food Science and Technology at UW-Stout presenting on Elevate Nutritional and Antioxidant Capacity of Fruit, Vegetable, and Cranberry Pomace Infused Value-Added Cookies. Thank you. You may begin.
Hello, per the 2020 to 2025 Dietary Guidelines for Americans, recently published this last December, we know that about 80% of the US population does not meet fruit intake recommendations, while about 90% of the US population does not meet vegetable intake recommendations. To add to this piece of information, we also know that fruits and vegetables are significantly wasted per year. This is evident in industries such as the food processing industry, which produces millions of pounds of fruit pomace, such as cranberry pomace. What pomace is it is the pressed remains of fruits containing the pulp, stem, and skin of the fruit. These type of byproducts cannot be directly disposed of in the fields due to uncontrolled fermentation. Therefore, an issue that companies are currently facing at the moment is having to spend large amounts of money in order to treat these byproducts before their disposal. However, what if all of this could be solved by converting these type of byproducts all into one cookie? So my supervisor for this year, it was Dr. Prana Bindu Mitra, and my research focused on elevating the nutrition and antioxidant capacity of fruits, vegetables, and cranberry pomace infused value-added type cookies. Cranberry pomace is well known to be a good source of bioactive compounds such as polyphenols, as well as vitamins, provitamins, and dietary fiber. So my research focused on infusing fruit cookies and vegetable type cookies with varying amounts of cranberry pomace, and then other nutritional parameters such as carbohydrates, lipids, protein, moisture, ash, fiber, and antioxidant capacity were analyzed. Our results show that the addition of cranberry pomace significantly increased the fiber content of these type of cookies from about 1 to 5%, and the antioxidant capacity from about 3.5 times to 12.5 times higher. The vegetable type cookies also showed a higher fiber content than the fruit type cookies. So, due to its nutritional benefits, these value-added type cookies do indeed have high potential for commerciality. Not to mention that cookies are already a common baked good that is familiar and well accepted by consumers worldwide. So instead of wasting cranberry pomace, this type of byproduct can be converted into an edible food ingredient in baked goods such as cookies. Not only would this help to enhance nutrition, but it would also bring in profit for food companies and help reduce food waste at the same time. These type of products can also help to expand and encourage the development of more nutritious, sustainable food type products. This type of expansion not only helps to advance and diversify the market, in my opinion, but it also makes it more competitive and innovative overall. So the next time that you reach out for a cookie, you could be gaining fiber and other nutritional benefits all in one yummy snack. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Miter. Any questions from the judges?
Yeah, Miter, just what cost is associated with actually producing this pomace to put it in your cookies?
So the pomace, so although we didn't look into the specific costs of the cranberry pomace, but because it is a byproduct, what it is it's dried and then turned into a powder form. And then this powder form is easily incorporated into the formulations of cookies, since they also use dried ingredients such as flour, baking soda, etc. So the cost of the cranberry powder itself is expected to be quite low, since it's just a waste product that companies don't want or need anymore.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank you. I know as a parent of small children, I'd love for my kids to be wanting to eat cookies with more fruit and vegetables in them. So I look forward to seeing where this heads.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we'll move on to Daniel Baker from Business Administration and Management at UW Superior, presenting on income inequality and the effects on pursuit of education. You may begin.
Imagine you make $65,000 a year, US average. You live in Superior, Wisconsin, and have a loving spouse, 2 wonderful children, a dog, and a Hulu subscription. With a livable wage there being $51,000 for a family of 4, you're not rich, but you make ends meet. Now take the same family, but instead put them in Washington, D.C. This family is objectively poor, the livable wage in D.C. being $80,000. For context, a house in D.C. costs 7 times that of Superior. These families' lives, despite earning the same income, are vastly different. One family manages an annual vacation while the other routinely waits in line at the food bank. The only similarity between these families is in how much money their children will get in federal assistance for college. My name is Daniel Baker, and I'm a senior at the University of Wisconsin-Superior. When I graduated high school, I ticked every box of average: middle class, public school, average grades. And despite my parents making close to a 6-figure salary, we lived in a place where that amount was barely livable. So imagine my shock when I filled out the FAFSA and I learned that my parents were expected to contribute 20% of their annual income to pay for my schooling. Across the country, this is not uncommon. And that brings us to the topic of my research, income inequality and the path to education for the middle class. I conducted a survey using current American college students, asking 4 basic questions: age, social class, parents' annual income, and how they primarily paid for college. My hypothesis was a U-curve, poor students and wealthy students receiving the most money, with middle-class students receiving the least. Throughout the results of my research, it became more and more evident that a middle-class student whose family made an average US income got just as much financial aid as a student whose family made 3 times that amount. Meanwhile, identified poor and wealthy students received the most either government or family financial support. Using and expanding this research, it would be possible to construct a more sophisticated financial aid algorithm using geographic and economic data, hedging a family's income against their expected cost of living, debts, and other factors that are currently ignored by the FAFSA that determine fiscal flexibility. Identifying the faults within the system and understanding the unique situation that every family faces is important. And this would help universities and the Department of Education expand the program to make sure that all students have access to a college degree. So ultimately, middle-class students across the country are faced with a choice. Do they sign their life away into debt to justify an education, or do they give up and risk slipping down into the grasp of poverty? Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Any questions from the judges?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Tim. No, Daniel, appreciate you talking about it as someone who had $75,000 of student debt at 9% interest for some of my loans. A question is, the FAFSA is what you're saying currently does not collect or calibrate geographical information as it is related to income?
I'm saying it doesn't take into account cost of living because it's dependent fully on AGI tax brackets. So that, I mean, a family making $80,000 in Superior, Wisconsin will have a lot more fiscal flexibility than a family making $80,000 living in Los Angeles County, for example.
Yep. Thanks. Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
And Daniel, how hard was it for you to collect this information? Were people able and willing to share this information, or was this difficult to have a cross-sectional data collection?
People were pretty willing. I actually made the option of social class self-identified, so what they considered themselves, middle class, upper class, etc. And I found it very interesting because a student who lived in a more rural town, for example, with a much lower cost of living, would consider making a family income of $100,000 as upper class or wealthy, whereas a student who made that much but lived in a more expensive area like DC or Hawaii consider themselves middle class or even sometimes lower middle class, but they were very willing.
Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, judges. Okay. Now we have Alyssa Santana from management at UW-Whitewater presenting on the distinctiveness of marketing and fundraising to Latinx arts organizations. Thank you. You may begin.
Growing up, I have witnessed my mother, a Latinx owner of a nonprofit theater company, be forced to make a multitude of sacrifices in order for a company to survive. Seeing firsthand the struggle she has had to face has inclined me to further explore as to what has been causing these drawbacks. Hi, my name is Alyssa Santana, and I'm a senior that recently graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater with a major in management and a minor in arts management. The sacrifices that not only my mother, but other nonprofit organizations have had to make are a result of the lack of resources and research on how to market to specific communities like the Latinx community. As this community has been looked upon as another source of revenue, many organizations do not know how to gain support from this community, and due to the scarcity of resources, it has had a significant negative impact on the funding that is received by these organizations. These major issues have led me to conduct semi-structured interviews with foundation program officers and arts administrators from theater companies and museums in an attempt to understand their distinct marketing and fundraising practices. Through these interviews, I want to discover some of the barriers and successes that these organizations face, in addition to seeing what foundations look for when releasing their money and how nonprofits can create a sustainable flow of funding. Eventually, my goal is to create a development toolkit for these organizations that do not have the time, resources, or staffing to hire for their marketing, fundraising, or research departments. This toolkit will allow for these nonprofits to reach the Latinx community and to people of color because minorities are becoming the majority, and it is important that that is recognized. In addition, this toolkit will provide valuable information such as research on grants, diversifying funding portfolios, and creating development, marketing, and fundraising plans that will essentially mitigate the sacrifices that these organizations would have to make. As this research explores culturally responsive practices, my hope is to discover and foster the ideas around diverse cultural contexts that elevate, support, and change how nonprofits function for the sustainability of their futures. I strive to be a strong advocate for my community and to promote diversity so that I could serve other nonprofit organizations like my mother's that have had such a consequential impact on my life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alyssa. Questions from the judges?
I think it's awesome that your experience and your mother's experience has stimulated you to go down this pathway. What's the best advice you can give your mother today?
Well, now conducting this research, I guess the best advice I would give my mother would be to just, I guess, connect with other organizations and connect with other Latinx and just organizations that serve people of color to come together and to share those resources that they have or the resources that they don't have and want to learn. Because that is one thing that I've learned doing this research is that all these organizations are as small as it is. So by coming together, they can really have an impact.
Very good. Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, judges. This officially wraps up all of our campus winning pitches. So thank you and congratulations to all of the presenters today. Virtual round of applause to everybody. Thank you. So now we'll ask the judges to stay muted and finalize their scores for the awards. Then as they do that, I want to remind them to also join the conference call line to confer on the winners. Now, let's try this. Yeah. Great. While we wait for them to finish up the scoring, I want to take a moment and share with you the exciting summer events we have coming up. The WiSys Quick Pitch Day Final would normally take place at the WiSys annual summer gathering called the WiSys Spark Symposium, which celebrates research, innovation, and entrepreneurship in the UW system. In place of our popular in-person summer symposium, WiSys will present again a series of virtual events for students, faculty, and staff. This year, our goal is to showcase student research and innovative projects, encourage interaction between UW system researchers and industry leaders, bolster researchers' grant-seeking skills, help students explore graduate school and STEM internship opportunities, and highlight cutting-edge research taking place across the UW system. WiSys started offering a summer symposium around 2009. The gathering had been known as the Wisconsin Science and Technology Symposium, or WSTS. It began as a venue for faculty to share their research results. Well, today, the symposium has a greater focus on student engagement, entrepreneurial innovation, and research across all disciplines, not just science and technology. In 2020, the event was renamed the WiSys Spark Symposium, and in 2020 and 2021, the event is temporarily virtual due to the pandemic. Throughout the series, attendees can learn about the new and exciting research taking place across the UW system and interact with the high-level researchers making it happen. UW Systems student researchers will have the opportunity to present their research, learn how to secure a STEM internship, and to ask questions about seeking an advanced degree. Faculty and industry leaders will have the chance to connect through a series of meetups focusing on innovation in the fields of mental health, data science, and STEM education. Faculty and staff interested in learning how to add grant writing to their resumes can attend sessions featuring grant writing experts and peers that have been successful grant seekers. So this is our event schedule for the summer. Last week featured the Wisconsin Big Idea Tournament. You can catch the live stream of that on YouTube as well. Join us for the next 2 Wednesdays for showcases of student research that took place during the last year. So take a look at the events and check out our website with more information on each of these, plus an opportunity to register. And lastly, I want to take a minute to thank all of our campus champions who helped make Quick Pitch happen on all 11 campuses. We really could not do this without you. And this list doesn't include all of the additional training mentors who help the students prepare for today and all of these students' research mentors themselves. Really, the whole culture of research represented on each of our campuses is amazing. Thank you to you and to everybody who helped get us to where we are today and to help the students get to where they got to as well in their education and research. Okay. So with that, I just ask that you sit tight for another minute while we get set to announce the winners. All right, everybody, thank you for your patience. We are ready to get started here. Okay. So now I've got your attention. We are back to announce the winners for the WiSys Quick Pitch State Final. First, another congratulations to all the students who presented today and their campuses represented today. A note on today's prizes: in addition to the statewide bragging rights, the top 3 awards will each receive a cash prize, $700 for first place, $450 for second place, and $250 for third place. Students, you should also be prepared that if your name is called, we would like you to turn on your video feed for a quick wave. And then I'll ask you all to stay after for a quick screenshot picture. Thank you. And now the moment we've all been waiting for. The third place winner of this year's Quick Pitch State Final is Daniel Baker from UW Superior. Congratulations, great job. The second place winner of this year's Quick Pitch State Final is Blair Wormuth from UW River Falls. Yay, congratulations. And finally, the first place winner of the WiSys Quick Pitch State Final and the winner of all the statewide glory is Carl Fossum from UW Eau Claire. Congratulations. Wonderful. Congratulations, and thank you to all the students who participated today. Thank you to the judges, Treasurer Godlewski, Dr. Nelson, and Mr. Kramer for your time this evening. We really appreciate your support of the students in this competition. And thank you to the WiSys staff who helped make this possible, blue screens and all. And thank you to everyone who joined us in the virtual space as well. Please check out our website at www.wisys.org/spark for information on the Spark Symposium virtual series. And join us right here next Wednesday, June 2nd, for the first student showcase. See you then and have a great night. Thank you, winners.